So the most recent episode of Game of Thrones came out tonight, and oh my god, did they knock it out of the park. Starting off in Marine, we had Daenerys and Tyrion and Grey Worm and oh my god, what's her name? I forget the poor translator's name, but it focused on the assault on Marine and how that came to a conclusion through Dany once more just storming into the place with her dragons and just absolutely wrecking shop like she always does by this point, quite frankly. And I know while a lot of people have actually gotten tired of seeing that from her, I actually still find it incredibly fun that all these people continue to, like, underestimate this poor little girl that they see as no real threat whatsoever, that she has no idea what she's doing. And then she comes out of nowhere and proves that, like, her dragons are just her ultimate trump card, right? As long as she has those, she cannot lose. And it was very rewarding to finally watch those slave masters get what they deserved. And with that small victory over after Grey Worm just slits both of their throats, it goes right back over to Westeros, where we are dealing with Sansa and Jon Snow as they are discussing their battle plans and what they're going to do, because they've gathered as many of the houses as they possibly can, and it's still not enough to actually defeat the Boltons. There's no way they will be able to pull this off with their numbers, and so they fall back on strategic planning, and Sansa the entire time is just like, this is not going to work. There's no way that you're going to be able to pull this off. And you get the sinking suspicion that that's probably the way it's going to go down as well. Game of Thrones has never been a cut and dry storyline in terms of just giving the audience what it wants. You know that there's going to be some hardship, you know there's going to be some struggle, and that's one of the things that makes Game of Thrones so profoundly fascinating, is that after George R. R. Martin has proven to us that he's willing to pretty much kill off anybody on the board, or at least that's what he's made it seem like, it makes every single fight scene that much more tense. And so while they're sitting there planning out this battle strategy, and Sansa's just going, this isn't going to work, there's no way you can pull this off, you don't have enough men, the Boltons also have Winterfell, you're not going to be able to do this, and Jon Snow's like, no, 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 we're going to fall back on battle strategy, or give me something better. And it's those kind of discussions that actually work very well with Game of Thrones, because you just do not know where the narrative is going to take you. You do not know if our good guys are ever actually going to come out on top, because George R. R. Martin, as he's shown, he doesn't care. I think he actually just revels in just watching us all suffer. And I can't really blame him. As a storyteller myself, it's one of the things that actually is very fun to watch, when your audience can't predict what's going to actually happen. And how often do we see that in movies or in stories of any kind, really, these days? Right? You might have the good guys pretty much always guaranteed to win. You may have a situation where, the good guy loses his best friend, or his love interest leaves him, or the love interest goes and gets themselves killed after all. But generally speaking, you know that the good guy's going to win, and at the worst case scenario, he ends up becoming a martyr, right? I've just pretty much predicted and told every story under the sun. And so it's very, very nice to see that Game of Thrones, this is nothing new. Game of Thrones has been doing this since the very beginning, but it's still nice to see that continues to hold sway, right? After so long of dealing with so many defeats, we finally actually see that pay off. We finally feel the weight and tension of these battles. And oh my god, what a battle it was. I don't think that Game of Thrones could have delivered it any better. While it was not as solid as the epic battle on the wall that we got, way back in season 4 or 5, when Mance tried sieging the wall and he had the mammoths and everybody. It's not going to be as grand as that, and I knew that it wasn't going to be as epic and climactic feeling as what's basically Helm's Deep on an ice wall. We still got a very solid war scene, and it was incredibly tense, and also very heartbreaking. I mean, I knew, and I'm sure everybody else, all of you, knew that poor Rickon was not going to survive that encounter. And I want all of you who, watch Game of Thrones, if you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you watch it, but I want all of you to comment in the little box below if you were also screaming when he was just running in a straight fucking line towards Jon Snow. I mean, I get it. It was the face of panic, so of course he's just adrenaline's just taking over. But come on, man. Serpentine, squiggle back and forth, do anything when it comes to... You're fighting a dude who's got a bow and arrow. I mean, take cover behind the burning corpses. anything. But no, Rickon decides he wants to be a pincushion instead, and so he allows himself to get shot through the heart, and just we all saw that coming, right? I don't think any of us were really surprised. Hell, even Sansa wasn't surprised. Sansa was like, he's gonna die. But as soon as he died, that just set every single plan that Jon Snow had out of motion. Sansa nailed it, and I think that that was probably the best scene in the entire episode, right? Sansa knew from the start that Jon Snow is not prepared to deal with the Boltons. And even though Jon had dealt with, the battle at Hardhome and all of these other crazy battles, it goes to show just how different and ruthless Ramsay really was, that he just doesn't play by any sort of rules whatsoever. He will do whatever it takes to win a war, and if that means getting Jon Snow flustered to just charge headlong into battle and forget about any kind of battle tactics, like, he'll do it, and that really put him in checkmate. I knew that I didn't know that that was going to happen, but it was really nice to see that actually happen. And I know that probably sounds absurd and insane, but while we've seen Jon Snow act as an incredibly competent battle commander and actually do a very good job at leading men, we've never seen him just snap, right? We've never seen him lose it. I think that there was actually one scene where he was cutting one dude down who was fighting another dude, and then he just goes and, kills the other dude as well. So does that mean that he killed one of his own men and then killed the other guy, in the process of this battle? I was having trouble figuring out who was on which side. They're all wearing, gray, so I don't know how they knew who to fight at and swing at, but I think that that was also kind of the point that the episode was going for. By the end of it, it just became this mess. It became a mosh pit. It actually became a medieval mosh pit, and I've never actually seen that done well in a movie or in a show or anything. The closest representations I've ever seen a realistic mosh pit happen is ironically a video game, the Total War series, where you're trying to push a bunch of people through a gate and they're trying to push back and then no one's really going anywhere and it's just this giant stalemate. I think that is about the only time I've ever seen a mosh pit represented realistically. But no, Game of Thrones did a very good job of it and made it seem as brutal and as grim and as, well, quite frankly, depressing as it really should be in the real world. And that shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody. It didn't really come as a surprise to me. Game of Thrones has always been very grounded, but it was still very cool to actually see that in action. But enough recap. We finally actually get to the scene that everyone was waiting for. After the Men of the Vale and Littlefinger come with their Rohirrim charge, that was pretty much straight out of Lord of the Rings in a good way, we finally get the one-on-one that we were hoping for, the bastard fight between Jon Snow and Ramsay Bolton. And wow, Jon Snow, when he finally got his hands on Ramsay, it was very satisfying to just see him just beat the man into the dirt. And I'm glad that he didn't kill him there, because the next scene that we got was something that we've all been waiting for a very long time. And I think that the way that they executed that scene could not have been done better, with Ramsay just slowly regaining consciousness, talking to Sansa and going, oh, so, I can see you again, or I'm always going to be around, and, I'm a part of you now, and blah, 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 blah. I want to touch on that, but before I do, yeah, that scene where Sansa lets loose the dogs, I knew that was going to happen as soon as he was sitting in the room, and there were all the cages. I was like, he's going to get eaten alive. He's going to get eaten alive, and that's going to feel really good to watch, and it was. I'm almost sad, and this probably sounds sick of me, but I'm almost sad that they didn't show more of him actually getting devoured. Game of Thrones has always shown so much torture that I really this was the one that I actually wanted to see get ripped to shreds. And that probably sounds terrible, but it's a show. I mean, it's not really justification, is it? No, it's not. I'm sick. So the dogs eat him alive, and we hear him screaming, and thank God he's actually screaming, right? He's not enjoying it. He's actually in pain, and it brings out sort of a primal rage inside of you, because our heroes are finally, and Sansa finally has a victory of her own. And in that last shot, as she's walking away into the darkness, you see the smirk, and then the credits roll in this cacophony of Game of Thrones themes, and it sounds great. Wow, what an impactful episode that was. It was really, it really hit at home. It really felt like it earned victory for our characters, and I loved every second of it. But I wanted to actually touch on the one thing where Ramsey says, where he says, I will always be a part of you, or always be with you. Now, he could be speaking metaphorically and just saying, about how much he's just messed with Sansa's head to the point where now she's always going to just be dreaming and having nightmares about what happened to her and what he did to her. But what if Game of Thrones just decides to be a little bit more sadistic? What if she's actually pregnant with this kid? Now, this is just a theory. I could be pulling it completely out of left field, but what if? And there was a little bit of foreshadowing beforehand where Sansa says that she can still feel him inside. Now, of course, that could have reasonably be referring to the rape that happened to her. But I wouldn't put it past Game of Thrones also to be like, oh, she's pregnant with Ramsay's child. Only time will tell. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of the episode. I thought that this was a phenomenal episode. If I had to give it a rating, I'd give it like an A minus or an no, not even an A minus, just an A. Actually no, an A plus. This is an A plus episode. They couldn't have done anything better. They couldn't have made it as grandiose as Hardhome or as grandiose as the Battle on the Wall, just because of the smaller numbers, and we didn't have monsters or crazy giants and mammoths to deal with, or castle siege. It was just a battle on a field. But even so, it was done beautifully, phenomenally, brutally, and it was everything that I could have wanted from a Game of Thrones episode. And for everybody that was complaining about the show being slow, well, it really ain't that slow anymore, is it? No, there's going to be a lot more fight scenes, I think, with us leading into the climax of this series, because we're finally nearing the end of Game of Thrones. I think there's 2 more, or is it 1 more season? It's either 2 or 1. And there will be a hole in my heart to know that there will not be anything left after this last or 2 more seasons. But anyway, that was my Game of Thrones review. I hope that all of you enjoyed me ranting and rambling. As you notice, I did a bunch of jump cuts. Hey, I'm finally learning how to kind of edit videos. It's still totally sloppy. Still don't really have much of a structure on this thing. But it's a lot better than what it could have been, right? It could have been my Warcraft review, which was 19 minutes long of me saying the same things over and over and over again. I like to think that this one had a little bit more structure. Maybe. As always, though, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to me just babble on and on and on about Game of Thrones, or whatever my point of discussion would be for the day. It's an honor to have you around, and I hope to see you again in all my other videos. I love having all of you. I love having you all here. It's still great and mind-blowing that you've all decided to 52 subscribers. It means, it really does actually mean the world to me. I'm going to be doing some more videos coming up, obviously, but they're going to be on, I want to talk about E3 and all of the crazy, awesome things that we actually saw from there. But that's a story, or a rant, rather, for another day. And so I shall see you all again later. Bye, guys. I love you lots. God, I need a better outro.